everyone. Welcome to another episode of SaaS Leaders Lounge. And today I'm joined by Jeffrey Rogers. Hi, Jeffrey. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Paris. How are you, sir?
I've been doing well, suffering from the cold weather in the UK, but can't complain. Had a great start to the year. And how's the new year been for yourself?
Hey, my friend, it's been good. It's been cold here in the States, so we're kind of struggling through that as well. But the life is good, family's good, business is good. So life, like we're excited for it, man.
That's great. And I guess you're based in Kentucky. So at the moment, are you seeing much snow or is it just cold temperatures?
It's just cold, Paris. But I will tell you from Kentucky being in the South, man, we're used to horses and being outside. So anytime it gets to things start to freeze, we start to scramble around here in Kentucky. So it's been super cold, but we're hunkered in. We're in Kentucky, so we got a lot of bourbon. So we're hanging in there pretty well, Bears. Hanging in there pretty well.
That's great to hear. And I hope to get down to the Derby at some point in my life. It has been a dream, but I've never managed to make it. Have you been there yourself?
So every year we go, and I will tell all of your listeners, if you have never been to the Derby, it is the most amazing day that you'll have. For they say it's the most exciting 2 minutes of sports, and I promise you, I've been to a lot of sporting events. That's the one you got to see. Put it on your bucket list. Come to Kentucky. You will enjoy the atmosphere, the bourbon, the horses, the Southern hospitality. Come on, Pierce.
Amazing.
You could stay with me. You come stay with me. I'll take you to the Derby, my friend.
I'll be coming next year, then we'll book it in. And just in terms of New Year's resolutions, has there been anything that you've penciled in that's important that you really want to achieve this year?
Um, Look, I think personally, we all strive to be better health, successful in our own ways in business and family. So I think we've all put some of those pieces into it. I will say that being inside 24/7 in this cold has kind of hurt the whole health resolution. But yeah, I think just succeeding internally, personally, and in business.
Nice. And in terms of for the guests that don't know who you are, I'd love you just to give a quick overview of yourself, what you're doing at the moment, and what you've done throughout your career.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So my name is Jeffrey Rogers. I'm the VP of Client Success and Global Support at Cyware Labs, a cybersecurity company. I've spent most of my career in the cybersecurity space, building client success organizations, support organizations, consulting with startup companies and CISOs and venture capitalists on how to become customer centric. And then recently, I've authored a client success mastery book. So it's been a busy year. Client success has changed so much. So we're constantly having to evolve. And that's just where my expertise is, Paris. It's something that I love customers, right? I know a lot of people say it, but truly understanding why people buy things, how they react, how they get value, and then how that translates into expanding your business bottom line.
And from your book, I did take a few snippets from it, and I know one of the pieces was really about, understanding the customer journey and creating, tailored kind of customer experiences for them. And I know this is obviously something that in the industry is talked about a lot because when you have many customers trying to tailor customer experiences for each one and a journey for each one, it can be very, time consuming and costly. So in respect to Cyware and what you're trying to achieve, how are you guys able to, really put something tailored together for each customer to make sure that they feel valued and listened to?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer. There's a lot of questions in that one statement there, right? Um, I think it's important to understand what value you bring to that customer. Right? And working with a lot of startups and as Cyware originally, we have this product in our minds that solves a problem, but our customers buy your product or your service to solve a problem. And I think it truly is up to the organization. And when I say client success, everyone in the organization is client success. So your CEO, your CTO, all the way down to the intern is client success, right? We are representing the business. We are getting feedback from that customer. So from a journey perspective, and I write this in the book, you have to have a journey. And I think if you're young in the client success department within your organization, it's okay to to highlight or to map out what that customer journey looks like in totality. But as you start to scale and grow, it is important that you start to segment your organization, your customer base, to understand where they are in that value proposition, that return on investment, and start mapping it out, whether you do it by industry, whether you do it by tiers, whether you do it by product types. But to be specific, what I will tell you, and you're a consumer, I'm a consumer, every single customer is different. Now, they may have different, or they may have the same outcome that they're trying to get to, but the path is rarely the same, right? In a horse race, we talk about Kentucky. Some people win from the front, some horses win from the back, some of them from the rails, some are from the outside. But the end of the day, their goal is to get to the finish line. So we at Cyware, we take all of our clients as assets to the organization. So we're looking at them individually and then mapping out how do we get to that defined value that sales sold to them, that the product can bring, and what are those steps that every week we are moving to get towards that, through that path. I hope I answered your question. Like I said, there's a lot of questions, a lot of things we could talk about in that one question there.
I definitely think that you addressed the question very well and answered many of the points. It was a large question to answer in segments. But in terms of cybersecurity, it's obviously an industry that's, been known to be quite a complex domain, and there's, so many moving parts. So the question I have is, when you're working with a customer trying to pitch the solution that you guys are offering, how easy is it to really understand, the real challenges from a technology standpoint? Is this something that you would always need technical customer success people for in cybersecurity? It's not like, a MarTech solution where it's not very technical. You don't really need to know the ins and outs of the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think hiring and client success is the most important piece, Paris. And one of the things, and you're right, and it's not just cybersecurity, there's some technical solutions out there that are very technical. Some organizations have your technical account managers, or they have solutions architects. And there's a need in every organization to have that technical person that can solve technical challenges. What we try to do at Cyware, and what I talk to CEOs about, is building your client success organization around different skill sets, right? So we have, and I think it's the most important part. I think Ewing Kaufman said, you always hire people smarter than you. And on my team, I'm always bringing in new talent sets. We have someone that's been in the consulting business for a very long time that's a CSM with us. We have someone that's run threat intelligence who's been with us. And the reason why I say that is because we solve challenges together as a team. And even though you as a CSM might own an account, you have a team behind you. And like I said earlier, when we talked about the first question, everyone is client success. So if I need to go to the CEO to get him on a call, he's there to do that. If I need to talk to a developer or a product owner, they're there to do that. If I have to call in someone that's been in threat intelligence for a long time, or someone like yourself, if I had a question on podcasting, I'm calling you because I don't know it to that highest level. And I think it's important for clients to understand that you have their best intentions and that you may not know all the answers, but you are bringing in the right people in the organization to help answer those or solve those problems for those customers.
And I guess regardless of the industry, customer experience will and continue to be, a top priority for all businesses. And from a perspective of leading the client success team, how are you measuring, the customer experience, and are you implementing any specific initiatives to maximize that customer lifetime value?
Yeah, that's our ultimate goal, right? And everyone in every book that you read, and anyone that's been in client success, every CEO and CTO and CFO will talk about gross dollar retention. How much money came back into the organization that was already sold, right? What is our net? Are we expanding that install base? And those are all metrics that every CS organization is going to have. But at the end of the day, Paris, it's about value. And I think one of the questions, or you had mentioned it earlier, do you really know? And that's where you have to rely on that consultative ability to ask questions to understand what that challenge is. Some people buy cybersecurity because they want to reduce their footprint, right? Increase their defense in depth structure. And some people need to buy it just for compliance, right? And those use cases are completely different. So from a CSM perspective, or client success organization, it's really understanding what that value is, right? Documenting that and making sure that you're agreeing upon it on the client standpoint. And it evolves year after year after year. These conversations aren't, you just have this conversation when you sell it. You have that conversation all the time because challenges within your customer change, right? So understanding what that value is, understanding what your product is doing to solve it. So what is that return on that investment? And then tracking how quickly you get that value, right? So if I sell you a solution that's going to solve your problem, I got the best podcast software out there. I'm going to solve all your technical challenges, but you don't get that realized for 8 months. The value is there. You haven't moved along that path, right? So we put a lot of things, and you can talk about um, NPR. You can talk about your quarterly business reviews, your annual. I think the most important piece from a CS perspective, continuing on that journey, is those annual business reviews with executive buy-in from your customers, right? Understanding what those challenges and goals are for 2024, for 2025, so that you can map your product and your path to those goals and challenges that your customers are having, if that makes sense. So I don't know that there's a specific silver bullet that's going to, that everyone can go out and buy a software or write down this formula or ask Chat GPT to solve this for you. It's a customer relationship, understand the value, and then making sure you're mapping your product to those values.
On the topic of customer success, what I wanted to ask you is, because I've been listening to a few podcasts and there's been the discussion of customer success software as such. Is that something that you've trialed at Cyware, and does it enable you to go that little bit further and really analyze what's working and what doesn't?
Yeah, I think you have to have something. And so, not to endorse thing, I've tried a lot of them. Nick Mehta, who was the founder
Yeah.
of Gainsight, yeah, he's written a couple great books, and I would recommend anyone in CS, all of my team members, when they come on board, get a copy of it. And not to tout him up, I think he's a good author. And not to tout that software, but you have to have something, right? Because you have to track journeys, you have to track conversations, but more importantly, it's because you need to know your customer. And you can't do that by, I guess in the old days, you could, and I'm going to date myself, you could put it on whiteboards and notebooks and so forth, but you have to track it, whether that's with the software. And in today's world, let's automate stuff, right? Because as you've seen, a lot of layoffs in client success, right? So do more with less. So how are we automating those pieces? From a software perspective, I think you can build it on your own. I think you can purchase a software like Gainsight or Client Success and so forth. I think the biggest piece, though, to finish off the answer to that question, that I feel like I'm ramming a little bit, is transparency, right? So what is very important is that we talk about client success being everybody. Well, then you can't just keep your data in isolation. Why did people buy what they bought? Why did people leave if they left, right? What are people saying today, right? Who have you asked to be your champion? Who has done podcasts for you or webinars for you? Those all have to be tracked, and they have to be visible to the entire organization. So I think it's imperative. I put it in the book. You've got to make sure that you're tracking that and that the data is transparent throughout your organization.
And on the piece of feedback loops, because you spoke about talking to customers, understanding where they are in their journey, what's working, what isn't. Is there been any feedback loops that have really proven to be game changers internally for the organization?
Yeah, and I said this earlier because I'll harp on this, and I said at one of the client success collective groups, and someone did it, and I apologize if she's watching. I didn't catch her name, but she did an amazing job of highlighting your annual business reviews. And so, all of us at client success understand the touch points that we have throughout the year with our clients. A lot of us have quarterly business reviews with our point of contacts, but at the highest level, you should be having annual business reviews. And those annual business reviews should be succinct. They should have a commitment to the executive sponsor, the business sponsor of your client. And that doesn't mean that person has to be there the entire time. She makes a very good point of saying, even if you had the first 15, 20 minutes, let's get right down to the value proposition, that return on investment, and let's talk about those goals. What are the challenges that those business leaders are trying to solve in 2024 and 2025? Because it's important for us as CS to make sure we're mapping that value back to those goals that they've already committed. So I would say that the number one thing that we're doing that that has the biggest impact, right, is align and having those annual business reviews with the executives to align your program with those per client. If that makes sense.
Nice. And in terms of you've spent over 20 plus years in the industry, and I guess you've worked within a lot of startups and helped them to grow. And that's a very pivotal moment for many businesses where they make or break. And I just want to really understand, is there any two or three absolute must-dos for any company in the cybersecurity space that really want to build and scale a truly successful and dynamic business?
Yeah, I think customer centric, and we talk about that, Paris, a lot. Everyone will tell you that too. I spoke to a CEO the other day, and he said, "We're customer centric." Yeah, well, we do that. We're customer centric. Our clients are our assets, right? But then in the next sentence, they talk about how they have a long time to value, that their customers aren't necessarily implementing it right away, that they're not doing it the way that it was designed. To me, that's not customer centric, right? Because we should be hearing from those customers. So I think putting in a customer centric attitude throughout the organization starts at the top of the CEO all the way down. We talked about that today as well. Everyone has to understand that the asset is the client. It's not the product. It's not you or I. It is the client. And they may use your product or see different things in your product than you do, right? I see a Ferrari a certain way. I'm sure they didn't build it the way I'm seeing it, right? They built it for certain things and automotive prowess, and I see it as a really cool car to have, right? So I think there's the customer centric throughout the organization, and breaking down silos. Paris, I talk at a lot of events, and I hear that all the time. How does CS deal with sales? What does that handoff look like? How does the marketing is doing this and we're doing this? Product doesn't listen to me because my customers are telling them this. So breaking down those silos are a huge part of being customer centric. Combining metrics, and we can talk about that if you like, but having shared metrics with the organization is a great way to break down those silos because you're working together. If part of sales' job is to grow revenue, and it's part of my job as CS leader or CS within the organization is to grow revenue, why aren't we tying those together? Why are we working together? We should not be battling against each other. So I think customer centric, to go back to your question, building a customer centric environment, top to bottom, that every decision, every priority the company's making is focused on the customer. They're the asset. And then breaking down those silos and merging those metrics within your organization to help build that type of culture. And it's hard at a startup. It's hard, Paris. It's hard at a startup, right? Because there's only so many people, and there's we got goals, and we're growing, and we're moving at warp speed. So we're in that Ferrari doing 200 miles an hour. Sometimes you got to pump the brakes a little bit and make sure that we're scaling all the departments with that growth.
I really like the way you put that, and I guess as you mentioned, within a startup, things are moving very quickly, and I guess as businesses are growing, you're seeing that processes are starting to get developed, and deciding on what companies start to go through change management and things like this. So it starts to mature the business a little bit, and then you can start to consolidate all the resources. But if you look at your journey into a leadership role, I always drive this piece of communicating within the community, building a network, and really understanding from others and learning along the way. How instrumental was that for you, in the early parts of your career? And I guess when you did start, there wasn't maybe as many cohorts and communities for customer success as there is now.
Yeah, back in the day, again, I'm dating myself, Paris. We didn't even call it client success back in the day, right? In our startup SaaS world, that's not what we called it. We called it just taking care of the customer, right? Um, it's important. I will tell you, it's actually more important now than early on, because back then I thought I knew it all, right? We were all learning together with it. I think the client success industry has changed dramatically. It continues to change. I would tell you 5 years ago, we were trusted advisors and consultants, and you and I talked about this in an earlier conversation. Now we're more sales focused, right? Building bottom lines to it. So we talk about hiring smarter people than I am. I want to talk to everyone, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it, right? But it's funny because you'll hear strategies that I heard 5 years ago that I thought would never work that are now perfect, right? And so there are lots of ways to go about providing value or driving outcomes for your clients. Hundreds of different things in programs and things you can put in place. So having those people to bounce ideas off of, having the ability to learn from your colleagues is vital. I think LinkedIn's great. I think the CS, and if you are part of a LinkedIn, there's a lot of CS groups. There's 2 or 3 major ones. I would recommend joining. You'll hear a lot of debates in those. The conferences are great because you get to sit down with leaders, understand what are they seeing in their industry? Because I work in cybersecurity, which is totally different than the automotive industry, or totally different than the recruiting industry, totally different than others. So to hear what's happening and what are some of the techniques that you are putting into place. I heard a gentleman speak the other day, and I'm not sure what country, but it was outside of the United States. And it was very interesting to hear how they were building relationships and some of the communications that may not work or may not have worked in the past here in the United States, but now you're starting to think, hey, the world's changing, right? The after COVID world, I can't go sit down and shake your hand in an office. So how are we trying to build relationships virtually? So I think it's incredibly important to always surround yourself around it. Last piece I'll take cybersecurity or take client success out of it. Cybersecurity changes every 15 minutes. Right? So if you're not with the smart people who are cat and mouse and going through this every single day, then you start to lose credibility if you're not in the know. So I think it's vitally important in some of the technology industries.
I agree, and I was listening to a YouTube video from a well-known cybersecurity technologist who's doing the engineering stuff, and he was talking about how people are getting paid to hack now by companies, and obviously that's a big part of really seeing what future breaches could look like. So that's obviously something that I was surprised about, but it is out there as a role. And but back to what you mentioned about breaking down silos and communicating with different departments and collaborating. You recently, if I'm right, was in Chicago for a conference, and that was based around collaboration and cross-functional practices, which ties into this and is also fascinating for the industry. So, was there any key takeaways or insights that really left a lasting impression with you at that conference?
That in 2023, we're still talking about sales doesn't like us, marketing doesn't like us, product team doesn't hear us. And I'm sure in their conferences, they're saying the same thing, right? So in 2023, we're talking about the same thing that I was doing in 2008 and 2010. It's these silo pieces. One of the things so that surprised me that we're still doing it, surprised me and then not, right? Because we talk about it all the time. I think, again, going to these conferences and hearing from other leaders on how you merge those or break down those silos are interesting pieces. I think one of the things that we do that I shared is that we share metrics. So, so a quick example, marketing teams, like one of their big objectives and goals is to bring in leads. So they do, like you all, they do webinars and podcasts and so forth, right? So to share that function, my CS gals, sorry, they are required to do webinars for marketing, right? And hopefully they do it by bringing in a customer. Now think about that. My team gets to brand themselves, gets to be industry experts, which builds their credibility. They get to invite a customer who gets to then, again, brand themselves personally or their business to it. And they get to talk about something that's happening in the cybersecurity world, a value that a product could bring or a problem that we're trying to solve. The marketing team gets to market that this expert and this client are going to come talk to this. So it is a win-win. My team gets to win. We build credibility. The customer gets to win because they get to brand their company or themselves. Marketing gets to bring in leads if people are interested into that product set. It starts to break down those silos because we're working together. Look, if you're a football or a soccer guy, because you're in London, so I'm sure like you're a Chelsea guy, or you man guy. Okay, all right. See, I know. Everyone is part of that team. Like when you win the cup, the whole team goes out there and holds the cup. Yes, strikers get a lot of credit when they score goals, but they can't win without the goalkeeper. They can't win without that defense, right? So if your marketing team's the defense and your sales guys are the strikers and you're the midfield and your product team's the goalkeeper, you win championships by all working together. You have a Messi with no goalkeeper, no defense, you may not be winning championships, right? So I don't want to be Messi, but I want to be that midfield, Harris. So I think, sharing those goals of how we want to get there, other than saying, hey, we want to grow X percent, is how you start to break down those silos. So that was an example of being able to share those and then learning from some of the teams and other leaders in those groups about what they're doing to kind of break down those handshakes, client success. I'm soapboxing a little bit again. Hey, client success. Our sales teams, they bring in client success. Think about that. If our sales guy is trying to pitch you on a product that's going to solve your problem, and he or she brings in the client success person that says, hey, it's not just me. This is the guy that's going to help you get there. This is your expert. This is your consultant. This is your pilot. This is your coach in that football field. Like, he's going to help you get there. Like, that's a valuable part. That's, again, breaking down silos because we're being brought in to the sales cycle very early. Long answer to your question, Ferris.
But I really liked the way that you linked it to football and the different positions and working as a team. I guess, it was a nice way to visualize what you were saying. And in terms of another point I wanted to bring up, which is going to be, good to hear your insights around, is, the development of new roles like Chief Customer Officer, Chief Solutions Officer, which are, becoming more and more, normalized in the industry. What are your takes on that, and how has that, made a big giant stride towards, the importance of customer success?
Huge. I think, and I'm not going to get her name right. Janie, she wrote a book, Chief Customer Officer 2.0. And Janie Bliss, I believe it was her name. Hugely important, right? Because client success should be at that board level. If sales are showcasing and reporting on their sales growth numbers, client success, the customer officer, should be reporting at the highest level on what the customers are saying, how the expansion is happening, and the problems in that return on investment, and the value that they're bringing to their customers. So I think in the past, especially early on, client success, regardless of the title, was kind of buried down a little bit below the senior executive level. And I think if you have a true customer-centric, so ask a CEO, do you have a customer-centric environment? Everyone's going to tell you yes. No one's going to say no. Everyone will say yes. And then you ask, who reports on the client success to the board? Are they on your executive board meetings? Are they in the executive retreats talking about customers? And 50% of them are going to say no. How can you have both, right? So I think it's incredibly important to have a title that puts it at the executive level to continue to drive the customer-centric experience. And she writes it in her book. I think she's done it very, very well, kind of highlighting that has to be elevated if you're going to consider your customers your assets.
Yeah, I'll be sure to put that on my reading list. And I guess, and I speak to a lot of pre-sales leaders as well in the space, and I'm part of a few communities there as well. And there's this ongoing discussion that there will be a crossover between pre-sales and customer success. And, I just want to understand, do you think that that's going to be a huge plus for the industry if there is, a role effectively that merges the two, or would they just be working very closely in tandem rather than as separate as they are today. Of course, there's some crossover and handovers, but I think it's going to be something that will shift closer and closer over time.
100%. 100%. Like, I can't sell you a Ferrari if you've never driven it. And that's what's happening in these industries some days. They're selling you a product because there's a problem that a customer or an organization is trying to solve. And then they buy your product and then they give it to someone to do it. Right? And so I think there has to be the merge of, hey, let me make sure you know how to drive a Ferrari. How do you drive? Like, I went to Ireland, right? And I do know how to drive a stick. I learned how to do that. I practiced a little bit back home. Then I went over there and they put me on the left side of the road with the left. Like, ever try to shift the gear with your left hand? Like, we don't even drive sticks anymore, right? So I think my point to that analogy is you need to have the consultant there that's really understanding the questions to ask of, yes, I know we can solve your problem, but let me understand where this is going to sit in your organization. What's the priority? What's the budget? What is the skill set setting behind that product so that I can make sure you're successful before you spend money on this? Because look, sales is going to sell you whatever. They got numbers to hit, and I've never met a CEO that turns down dollars. But the client success person is very responsible for making sure that it works, making sure you get value. And if you're buying a Ferrari and you got 7 kids, I think that's probably a bad sell. And I need to sit there and say, hey, Paris, let me ask you a question. What are you going to do with the 7 kids when you only have 2 seats? And you have to think, oh, right, maybe I don't need to buy the Ferrari from that guy, but maybe I can buy the Maserati SUV, right? Because I got kids to it, right? So I think it's very important to bring the CS folks, the consultative folks together with the pre-sales to make sure we make good sales, because at the end of the day, you want a long lifetime value. That's where your valuations come from. It's you don't want to churn customers. You want to grow customers. And at some point, you're going to wake up and realize that you can't fit 6 kids in that car.
I agree. I've got 4 of my own, so I totally understand it. I've got a family 7-seater, so I
Yeah,
definitely agree with that.
I've seen your Ferrari, Paris. I know. That's why I brought it up.
And just to, if I focus a bit more on your take on leadership, I think this is going to be important, especially for me, just to really understand. So throughout your career, you've mentioned things like working with smarter people, hiring people with diverse skill sets to complement each other within the team. Now, for you personally, when you're hiring into your team or any organization you've worked with, what are the most important aspects that you're looking for? Because obviously, if you're trying to get a promotion into a new role, you're going to need to showcase that you've been able to bring in top talent and not only bring them in, but nurture them to take your spot so then you can move up the ladder. So I really want to understand what you're looking for when you're hiring these people and, some of the lessons you've maybe learned along the way.
Entrepreneurship, Paris. Like, that's it. And I say that because that encompasses work ethic. It encompasses thinking outside the box. It encompassing failing. I owned my own business very early on and realized, man, it takes someone special. Like, it's a lot, man. It's like, you think a 9-to-5 job is hard? Go sit with some of these CEOs. It never stops, right? And they don't teach you about all the things that have to get done in college to run a business, right? So I envy the CEO. So when I'm looking for team members, I want you to think outside the box. You think of it, your book of business, as your company. And what that means is, if your client's asking for something and product's saying no, that's not how it works, man. We have to get together. We have to come to a common ground. And so I need the mentality that you're going to fight for your customer, and you're going to fight for a customer-centric spot in the organization, right? And when I say entrepreneurial, like, if you want to be a CEO, oh, like, my hat goes off to you. Like, I'll help you on that path, right? I want someone that's wired that way. Someone that's going to go to work every single day, not be micromanaged. You don't, like, if there's a new thing that needs to happen, you need to go see your customer. Let's go. Like, let's go. If you need me there, let's go. Right. And so I need that mentality. And the last piece I would put to Paris is getting better. There's 100 things that I could be doing better. Right. And so one of the things we do, like I mentioned, is we bring different skill sets. learn from them, right? If you've got someone that's been in the consulting industry for 10 years, listen to them, understand the questions and why they're asking what they're asking, right? Learn from, and if you have something to give, like I'm trying to learn Spanish, Paris. It is not going very well. I need someone to help me, right? So offer up your skill set. So I hope I answer your question. It's hard. Hiring's hard because you don't really know. And I don't know how, I don't, you can have 100 interviews. You don't know until you get there, right? Until you get there. And I learned from one of my mentors, hire quickly, fire quickly. And I know that sounds hard, like it does,
True.
but you don't know. And if it's not working out, it's best for both of you to do something else about it, right? And when you get the right person, you'll know, man, like the rock stars. I got rock stars on my team right now.
You get that gut feeling. Would you say you kind of feel that connection almost immediately that there's a good fit there, and it's just about how we can, accommodate them and make them feel part of the team right away.
100%. Like it's the
And
attitude, it's the wanting to learn, it's the asking the questions. Like I shouldn't have to.
curiosity.
Yes, it's, hey, how do I do this? Hey, why did they do this? Hey, can I sit on this? I need to get access to this so I could do that. And I could say, well, we've never done that before. And that person goes, okay, but I need it now. Let's go. Right? Like that's the attitude that I'm looking for the team. And that's infectious, Paris. Like it just goes, right? When someone scored 5 goals, you're like, man, let's go. Let's get behind that guy. Let's learn from that guy, right? That's what we look.
And I guess from your experience working in a range of different companies, when you're hiring, maybe for a large organization of 30,000 people plus, your requirements and the key skill set, might remain the same, but the tangibles will change from time to time based on a company size. Because as you mentioned, being in a small business, you're going to need
Mhm.
somebody that's willing to wear many hats, willing to, take the initiative and drive things home. There is maybe in a more mature enterprise business with, you know, 3,000, CSMs, it's going to be very difficult to have somebody that's going to want to do all of these different things. They're going to have a set, day task list, and they will kind of go through that and kind of manage the customers that they've been given. So it's going to be very different, I guess. Do you agree with that? Or
100%, 100%. Now, I can't give you an exact answer to that because my entire career has been based around that startup world, right? Because that's my sweet spot, building out the processes and so forth. So my expectation at a large cybersecurity company in client success that you would get very specific type roles for specific things that you're trying to accomplish outside of the basic client success. I say basic, but outside of the client success function, customer centric function.
nice. And just on something you mentioned just a moment ago on mentorship, that's something that I'm big on, and we talk about it on our podcast regularly. But from your perspective, was there any mentors that were influential in your success in the early years, or sponsors that really got behind you and drove your ambition to be a leader?
Yeah, I would say that there's not a CEO or COO that I've worked under or been a part of that I haven't learned from, Paris. Some good, some bad, right? I've had CEOs say, hey, that's not going to work and we're not going to do it, right? And so I think you learn from all of those pieces. And of course, I think you have personal relationships that drive you. I will tell you, and I know I told you earlier that I wrote a book. That idea happened because we were having a conversation with my children about, is America really the place where the American dream is alive, that you can just go do something at any age with any skill set if you put your mind to it? And their answer was no. Think about that. The youth said, no, that doesn't happen anymore, Dad, right? And so I wrote a book because it's something I always wanted to do. And I did it in start to prove a point, right? So when you go back to mentorship, I think everyone should have someone. I think if you are, regardless of what you're doing, client success podcast, if you want to be the best podcast guy out there, you'll probably want to talk to the people that do it. You want to be a real estate investor, go talk to the people that do it and are successful. They are willing to share their knowledge, right? And they've already been through the mistakes. If you want to talk about building a client success, if you're a young CEO or you have a startup company and you want to talk about it, I've made a lot of mistakes. I can tell you those mistakes. I've made a lot of successful things happen. I can talk about those too, right? So I think it's important to have mentorship because they've already gone down that path. That makes sense.
And just before we move on to the quick fire questions and the question from our previous guest, I always want to ask our guest about what you just mentioned there, some of your, biggest achievements and, some of your biggest failures. So people maybe looking to make that transition into leadership or in a similar position can maybe learn from those mistakes or avoid them.
Yeah, I think from a success standpoint, uh, Paris, I think I've been a part of amazing leadership in startup companies that have grown, some that have exited, some that have, when someone has the investors invest in them, that's a huge win because they see value in that company. Those are huge pieces. It's not without failures though, right? And so um, there are a lot of things that you put into place or have great expectations and they don't work, right? And that's okay. It defines a man on how you feel after that,
That's
right? Like
but
how do you pick yourself up and drive to that and you learn from it. I think the worst part is if you make a mistake, it doesn't work, it fails, and you don't learn from it, right? So I think those are the pieces to it. A lot of successes in the startup world. It's and again we've talked about that. It's my sweet spot. Every time we take a step forward, every time we take the next year, I'm excited about what we bring to the organization.
amazing. And in terms of quick fire questions, then I'm going to ask you the first one, which is, probably one that you've heard before. If you could, go back and tell your 20-year-old self anything of, valuable advice, what would it be?
Go, just go. Stop thinking, right? Like I started a company and it didn't work. It was the best. I have a master's degree and lots of certifications. There's nothing that can teach you that what I experience. But go, just go. I've been with a lot of friends in college, entrepreneurs who had great ideas and didn't do it, right? So if I could go back, stay in cybersecurity, great market to be in. But two, don't worry about it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just go, my friend. Just go.
And if you look back to being a child, what was it that you wanted to do with yourself as an adult? What was your ambitions or goals?
Well, I failed at those multiple times, Paris. I wanted to be a business owner. I had a friend. He was my business partner. His name was Scott. We called it Scott on a yacht, right? So we wanted to be wealthy and run, like Wall Street, Gordon Gecko, like be that guy. That did not work out because there's so much more to that, right? I have an uncle who's a professor, so I loved what he did. So I wanted to be a professor. So I did that for a year. Paris, that was awful because people did not have the same passion about security policy that I did, right? Imagine that. So I think there's just pieces to it of failing and learning and getting back up. I always loved the cybersecurity because it was problem solving. My father was part of a law enforcement agency and then became an attorney. So I was always about the good guy, bad guy. And so solving problems, the cat and mouse, that was always me. War games back in the day, again, dating myself. So I always wanted to do that. And I got lucky enough to study it. And I got lucky enough to get trained in it. And then to be in cybersecurity startups is not where I thought I was going to be, but I'm glad that I am here. And now leading probably the most interesting part in client success organizations. Like it's a dream come true, my friend. I guess I
It
could be
is.
doing podcasts like you, like you're a celebrity.
I wish I've still got a long way to go, but the more guests I can get of your quality, I'll be happy to learn some insights from each guest. It'll make me a better host and make me more knowledgeable in the industry as well. So that's something that I'm striving towards. And just on a positive note, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would you like it to be?
Oh man, that's a personal thing. I'm a father, and I think that is the most rewarding pieces to it. Business aside, I think just being like being with your family, and even if you're not a father or a parent, being a good son or daughter, Just being that family dynamic. As the elections are coming up in America, I worry sometimes, right, for my kids that we've lost touch of just being nice and good and family. I'm gonna say family moral, but family values to it. So I'm super proud of that, and will always be.
Nice, and I can resonate with that. And I guess watching what's happening on the news at the moment, it is, worrying times that there could be, somebody coming back into power who maybe shouldn't be there. But we'll leave politics out of this. And just in
Just
terms of, because we can go on forever about that, but just in terms of a question from the last guest, I want to ask you, which is, what is something that you've never had a chance to do, always wanted to do, and what maybe prevented you from doing it?
Yeah, man, I wish you would have asked that question like 8 months ago, and I would tell you write a book because it was a big thing for me. Um, but it takes a lot of energy. That took a lot out of me, right? Because it is a lot to that. So Paris, I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to pass on that because like the book was my thing, and now that I've overcome that, I guess I have to have another conversation with my kids and then tell me something else I can't do to go do that, my friend. Figure out how to get 6 kids in that Ferrari. Maybe that'll be my next thing.
Well,
Maybe
good luck.
Ferrari will hire me.
If you crack the Da Vinci Code on that, then you can maybe share the insights, and I'll buy one as well. But is there a question that you'd like to ask or share with me for the next guest?
And I don't have a whole lot of context on who that person is, right? So it's just a blanket question.
I'll say it's a customer success person. It will be
Okay,
because it's
customer
already.
success person. Here's one that we talk about all the time. How do you define return on value, return on investment? And I know that's just a blanket question mark, and it's a little bit more specific maybe for your guest. But every person I talk to, myself included, we struggle with that sometimes, right? Because it's easy to say in the cybersecurity world that we're going to stop breaches, right? We're going to stop the attacks, right? Where's the return on value? Like if you're very, very good at your job, then no one ever attacks you. Do they really need you, right? So anyway, that would be my question for the next person. I'd love to listen to the podcast and hear the answer to that. Maybe there is a silver bullet out there.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be answered by somebody that you know. Who knows?
Well,
And
it is a
uh,
very small world, Paris. It's a very small world in the client in the client success. I see a lot of the same people out there, even though more and more people are getting into the industry for sure.
I agree. And again, I want to thank you for your time, Jeffrey. But just before we do wrap up, for those that are in customer success and want to connect with yourself or want to join some communities, is there any that you recommend, and where can
Yeah, I
they
don't want
join?
to. I don't want to like single one out. Go to LinkedIn. You can follow me. Happy if you want to DM me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to tell you the ones that I belong to. Make sure that you're studying your craft. Like learn the business, right? And so if you're new to it, go read and learn as much as you can. If you're a seasoned veteran, don't think you know it all. There's someone else doing it different, and we can all learn from them.
And given the amount of experience and success you've had in, building successful customer success teams, if anyone does want to purchase the book or, wants it as a reference, where would they be able to purchase it? Is it Amazon
Yeah,
or?
I appreciate that, Paris. It could be bought on Amazon. It's Customer Success Mastery. It's not the good news is here, Paris. Don't read it cover to cover. That's not that type of book. I've had people, friends of mine, buy it and go, "Oh my gosh, what is happening here?" It's a reference book. I think you talked about it. We talked about it earlier. I like the car analogies, but no one reads their car manual from cover to cover. Well, not anymore, right? And so, if you need a technique, if you're looking for a solution, if there's an idea that you want to kind of get some pros and cons to, the book's a perfect opportunity or a user manual for client success out there. So it can be purchased on Amazon, and I appreciate you mentioning that today.
No problem at all. And I want to thank you for your time, your amazing insights, and for that Southern hospitality as well.
I'll see you at Derby, Paris. I'll see you, my friend.
No problem. I'll definitely be there next year. I was surprised by the winner this year, but we'll go together next year. You take care. enjoy your week and have a highly successful 2024, Jeff.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You take care now.